Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Parish in Concord. Thank you to Eric for that lovely prelude. I'm Reverend Howard Dana, and I'm the Senior Minister here at First Parish in Concord, and it is a glorious day in New England. So if you are gathering from your home or your porch or your yard or however far your internet stretches, I hope that you are enjoying this beautiful day, and we are so glad that you have joined us for church. There are folks all across our country that tune in for our services, and even other folks from around the world, and you are welcome here too. We're also on YouTube, and we get lots of folks seeing the services there. So one of the joys of being online is that folks can attend from far and wide. I want to welcome you all to this service this morning. If you are someone for whom a live transcript of this service would be helpful, you can turn that on by just finding the little box at the bottom of your device that says CC. Just monkey around with that a little bit, and you should be able to get those words turned on for the live transcript. This morning, we have a very special service offered by a bunch of lay folks. The team that has been working on this service and working with the church is known as the Laying the Groundwork team. And this came out of last year's General Assembly and a report that was published there on widening the circle of concern. And I'm going to introduce those folks first and let them say hi to you. This is our Laying the Groundwork team, and we'll start with Jan Power.
Good morning, it's good to be here with you.
Darian Smith is also on the team.
Good Sunday morning, wonderful to be with you all.
And Wendy Holt. Whoops, you'll have to unmute yourself, Wendy. That's how you know it's live.
Wonderful to be with you on a beautiful day like this.
Lois Suarez is here. She's a member of the team.
Wonderful day to be here.
And Holly Jones-White was also on the team, but is not here with us this morning. The other folks rounding out worship this morning, I'll just go in the order that I see them. Reverend Liz Weber is here.
Morning, everybody. Welcome to church.
Beth Norton.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here with this team this morning.
Amy Friedman.
Happy Sunday. I want to let the kids know that if you haven't already, there is a summer kickoff kit waiting for you by the side door of the church. You can pick them up, side office door of First Parish. You can pick them up today or tomorrow, and there are all kinds of treats in there. Nice to see you all.
Dawn Van Patten is here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you this Sunday morning.
Peter Nobley is going to offer our social action candle a little bit later.
Good morning, all. Nice to see you.
Lily van der Zanden is working behind the scenes to keep us on track on tech. Whoops, we can't hear you, Lily, so this sometimes happens. Just wave it, folks. There you go. And last but not least, of course, Marianne Barton, member of the congregation, who is here. Say hi to folks, and then Marianne has the call to worship.
Good morning, all. So good to be here with you. Our call to worship this morning was written by Viola Abbott for The Promise and the Practice, which is a packet for Sunday worship centering voices of Black Unitarian Universalists. Toward a place of wholeness. We are Unitarian Universalists. When we lift up our 7 principles, some of us think of them as a form of theology, but they are more important to our collective than that. They do not tell us what we should believe. They tell us how we should be. They tell us how we should act in the larger world and with each other. We are brought here today by the fact that Unitarian Universalism has fallen short of the image that was presented to the world and to many of those who embrace this religion. But we are also brought here today by the truth that Unitarian Universalism has shifted course to move toward a place of wholeness, a place that perhaps never existed for us as a denomination. It has been a long and sometimes unforgiving road to today, but we are here today because we are mindful of that past and because we have hope for the future. We want the practice of this faith to be a fulfilling manifestation of its promise. Open your hearts. Seek new ways of understanding. Come, let us worship together.
Thank you, Marianne, for those words. Each Sunday when we gather, we know that one of the things that unifies us is a common chalice. And each of us, whether it's a chalice or a candle or just some small flame we imagine, can kindle that flame and know that by doing so, we are connected. We have been connected through this long, difficult pandemic. We are getting through it and we will be reunited. But for now, I invite you to light a chalice wherever you are and know that you are part of this congregation. Please join in the chalice lighting words that will appear on your screen. O flame of our faith, open our hearts and fill our bodies and souls with persistent strength, enliven our spirits and engage us deeply in this life of ours, this sacred essential moment now. And now let us sing together our opening hymn.
Church. Welcome to the Children's Message for All Ages. My name is Holly Jones White, and along with Lois Juarez and Darian Smith, we'll be reading a story about a little mouse named Desmond who lives in a meadow. The story is called Desmond Gets Free by Matt Meyer, illustrated by Kim Pham, and published by Skinner House Books.
For all those working to build a new world of justice, equity, and compassion. Desmond the mouse lived in the most beautiful meadow in all the land. Every morning, Desmond woke with the sunrise and would spend the day playing in the meadow. And every evening, Desmond would go to sleep in the middle of the meadow under the beautiful starry sky. One night, though, Desmond awoke when it was still dark out. He tried to roll over to a more comfortable spot, but something wasn't right. Desmond realized his tail was stuck right to the ground and beginning to throb with pain. He felt behind him, and there was a huge boulder that seemed to have fallen in the middle of the meadow, just on his tail. Desmond pushed on the boulder and tugged on his tail. He pushed on the boulder, he tugged on his tail. He pushed and he tugged and he pushed and he tugged, and it was no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up, he saw a giraffe nearby in the grass. Good news, he thought. Oh, giraffe, Desmond cried. Could you please push the boulder a few inches in the other direction so I could go free? The giraffe looked at Desmond and laughed the way giraffes do.
Silly mouse, said the giraffe. That's no boulder. That's an elephant that's fallen asleep in the middle of the meadow, just on your tail.
Well, if you could just wake the elephant and just ask him to roll over a few inches in the other direction, I could go free.
Well, replied the giraffe, you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best to not get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times like this.
Desmond quietly replied, well, I do not appreciate your neutrality. The giraffe wandered off, and Desmond tried calling out to the elephant to wake him up, but those giant ears were just too far away on the other side of the giant elephant body. So again, Desmond pushed on the elephant and tugged on his tail, and he pushed and he tugged and he pushed and he tugged, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and just about given up again, a gazelle walked by. Oh, gazelle, he cried. Oh, gazelle. It seems that an elephant has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of this meadow. I'm stuck and it hurts. I wonder if you could gently wake him and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction so I might go free.
Well, said the gazelle, I see your problem there, but you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times like these.
Desmond replied, almost to himself this time, I do not appreciate your neutrality. Desmond tried to call out to the elephant. He tried again to push the elephant animal away. He tried again and again to tug his little tail free, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up for the last time, he saw another mouse wandering in the meadow.
My name is Nelson.
Nelson, this giant elephant has fallen asleep on my tail in the middle of this meadow. I wonder if you might run over and call into his giant ears and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction so I could go free, Desmond asked.
Of course, said Nelson.
Nelson ran all the way to the other end of the giant elephant body, called up in those giant elephant ears at the top of the giant elephant head, but the elephant didn't budge. The elephant heard Nelson's small voice far away, but he felt too comfortable to move. Nelson ran back to Desmond, a little out of breath, and said,
I have an idea. Don't move.
He ran off. I won't, muttered Desmond. A little while later, though, Nelson appeared through the tall grass, and he wasn't alone. Nelson found 3 other mouse friends to help him, and each of them had also brought another 3 friends. The whole group of them ran over to the giant elephant head of the giant elephant. One mouse scrambled up onto the shoulders of another. and another mouse scrambled up on her shoulders. And then one after another, they climbed up until the whole group of them formed a long mouse ladder right up the side of the elephant. At last, Nelson climbed up the shoulders of his mouse friends, one on top of another, until he was way up on the giant elephant head, standing next to the giant elephant ear.
Excuse me, he called out right into that ear. It seems you've fallen asleep on my friend's tail in the middle of this meadow. I wonder if you could just roll over a few inches in the other direction so he might go free. The giant elephant made a giant low groan. "Ugh, I'm comfortable just where I am. Go away."
So Nelson asked more of his mouse friends to climb up. One by one, they helped each other up the side of the elephant. One by one, they called out the giant elephant top of the giant elephant head. Again, the giant elephant made a low groan.
"Ugh, I'm comfortable just where I am. Go away."
Then Nelson had an idea. He whispered to the mice, and then all at once they yelled out together,
"Excuse us! It seems you've fallen asleep on our friend's tail in the middle of this meadow. Roll over a few inches in the other direction so he can go free."
This time, all those voices together, right next to the elephant's ear, were too loud to ignore.
"I was comfortable where I was, but I'll move over if you just agree to stop making such a racket," the elephant cried out.
And then the elephant rolled over just a few inches in the other direction. Nelson and the other mice helped each other climb back down, and Desmond was finally free. Desmond and Nelson and all their mouse friends spent the rest of the beautiful day in the middle of the meadow.
This story was inspired by Archbishop Desmond Tutu from South Africa. He has said, if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse, and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. Thank you for listening to our children's message.
Please join me in singing our response. Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to seek what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another, and may we walk in peace.
Good morning. My name is Fred Van Dusen, and I will be reading an excerpt from the essay Joy in the Spiritual Work by Mary Byron in Widening the Circle of Concern, which is the report of the Unitarian Universalist Association Commission on Institutional Change. Here are the words from Mary Byron. My UU faith has been an important part of the spiritual journey of my life. I believe in our principles and our way of expressing them publicly, advocating for the world of justice, equity, and compassion we know is possible. And we know this world is not yet here. This is one part of why I do anti-racism work. It may be a simple statement to say my faith calls me into action, and it is sometimes not so easy to live as a white person. I've needed to do a lot of deep spiritual work on myself. Unlearning the ideas of supremacy that I have absorbed from our culture is so much harder than learning about injustice. Yet I know we won't move away from our comfort in white supremacy until we unlearn and dismantle it in our lives. I also do this work because I find such joy in the community of people engaged here. Breaking down my personal barriers and connecting with people is liberation for my heart. Superiority feeds our egos and it shrinks our hearts, and I don't want to live in a small-hearted world. My joy comes from belonging in a community with big-hearted, creative, welcoming people. Lastly, I do this work because I am so curious about what we might yet build together. My fellow commissioner, Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore, speaks of dreaming of a Unitarian Universalism that does not yet exist. None of us knows what transforming our congregations into truly multicultural expressions of our faith will be. I relish the opportunity to create something new, and this is what keeps me in this work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. This reading from Mary Byron speaks very clearly to me. I, too, need to do a lot of deep spiritual work, unlearning many of the ideas and attitudes of the white-dominated culture we've all grown up with that have been baked into so many of our systems. Previous to recent years, most of the white people among us just didn't see how so many systems primarily benefit just those of us who are white. For me, it took the death of Michael Brown at the hands of police in Ferguson, Missouri, and the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement to truly open my eyes. But once I began to see, I could not again unsee and unknow the depth of injustice and that there is so much to be done on many levels. I wondered, how can I help or make a difference? I started learning for myself through programs here at First Parish, beginning with a group discussing the book Waking Up White. It's become part of my spiritual practice, part of growing my soul, as we've talked about over the years here at First Parish. And I've learned it will take time and continued effort. Many of you have started this internal work as well, including through the more recent Beloved Conversations, other programs or readings. I'm sure, like me, you found it takes openness, curiosity, humility, and effort to unlearn and indeed to dismantle aspects of white supremacy culture in our own lives. And then beyond this individual work, there is the need for changes to many systems and practices in our wider culture, which is work none of us can do alone. There has been strong leadership and robust participation in our First Parish congregation for speaking out, supporting, and joining justice work in various ways to free us from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, as we just sang this morning. It's energizing to me that many of us, as UUs and many others, have awakened to the need for all kinds of work and are stepping up. But in between our individual internal work and work on a large scale that requires many people, we may have places closer to home where we can affect real change. I believe First Parish is one of those places. Here, work has begun among us, as well as nationally, on adoption of an 8th principle of Unitarian Universalism. But what about our own systems, particular to First Parish? Does it mean we've been doing everything wrong and we should look to pick it all apart? Not at all. But I believe we can do better if we allow ourselves to be open to the possibility that we have something to learn. If we have the courage to adventure boldly and explore in search of truth that we may now simply not realize is keeping us from truly being open and welcoming to all who share our faith and would like to walk with us. Like Mary Byron, I am so curious about what we might yet build together.
Thank you, Darian. Darian introduced the term white supremacy culture, which must be understood to do racial justice work. When I first heard it, I really didn't know what it meant. And I eventually learned that it's not about nakedly racist attitudes and actions, but rather the inevitable normalizing of white privilege within our culture after centuries of systems structured to maintain it. White skin privilege has shaped our world and has been our normal, and with many aspects unnoticed and unexamined, especially for those of us who are white. Our culture certainly has many positive attributes that are worth maintaining. However, I have learned that some can exclude or silence others. These include perfectionism, an emphasis on efficiency and getting things done quickly, a preference for expertise based on analysis of data over that derived from lived experience, and a tendency to quash or quickly shut down conflict, often without directly addressing the core of the conflict. Do you perhaps enforce any of these standards on yourself? I do. In fact, I must. As a consultant, I am expected to and rewarded for meeting these cultural expectations. Many of us in this congregation are experts in navigating this culture and have been richly rewarded. In addition to these cultural levers, our highly segregated built environment, as historical legacy of discriminatory laws, creates geographic barriers. Many of us yearn for connections with communities different from us. Ironically, our housing prices and transportation challenges keep us in our own small world almost effectively, as they limit the number of families of color in Concord. Some of you have wondered how we can undertake an examination of our white supremacy culture without very many people of color to teach us. And you are absolutely right. It is imperative that we listen to voices of people who have been excluded and marginalized. But those of you in Beloved Conversations and many others who have participated in other learning opportunities or delved into work by Black authors, we know that there are extensive resources that we can draw upon to learn how to widen our circle of concern. I am currently working to find a balance between what is valuable in our culture and learning to work in different ways that allow for greater partnership with diverse colleagues and stakeholders. While I started to recognize and understand white supremacy culture in the context of race, I have come to see this work more broadly as part of my spiritual growth. It challenges me to approach each interaction with another person with full recognition of their wholeness and humanness. To change our church culture, we will need to work together. We will need to learn how to strike up welcoming conversations in coffee hour, form inclusive groups and committees, run meetings, work together, and handle conflicts more directly and honestly. We will also need to look at our policies and practices, including how we use our financial and other resources. This won't be completed in a year, but we can make some progress every year. And I firmly believe that this path will enrich every one of us.
Thank you, Wendy. 4 years ago, I began attending the Unitarian Universalist Association's annual General Assembly, where I heard the call for UUs to live into their values by taking on anti-oppression work. Between that and what was going on in this country politically and socially, I realized that if the dominant white culture is going to change in this country, it was going to take even more white people working to change it from within. So I started working on changing myself from within, so I would be better prepared to contribute to that change. I wasn't exactly sure where this work would take me, but I started it, trusting that the pieces would eventually fall into place and would show me where I might be able to contribute to making change. My internal work Reading, taking courses, attending General Assembly, listening to various thought leaders has required a lot of humility, honest introspection, and a willingness to open my mind even wider than ever before. It's been enlightening and really rewarding, if not always easy. At last year's General Assembly, I and 13 other First Parish attendees heard a report from the UUA's Commission on Institutional Change. Their report, titled Widening the Circle of Concern, analyzes structural and systemic racism and white supremacy culture within Unitarian Universalism and within the UUA. One of its conclusions, quote, "In spite of the promise of our movement, we still need to address the bias and oppression within our systems to build resilience in our tradition," unquote. In other words, we UUs have more internal work to do. The UUA has committed to spending the next 5 years using the Commission's report to help it identify the bias and oppression within its policies and practices. To help congregations take on this same work, a study and action guide has been created to guide us in looking at our own church's policies and practices and reassessing them through an anti-oppression lens. Most of us who attended GA last year from First Parish, myself included, we're excited about the possibility of our own church doing this work. So we submitted a proposal to the Standing Committee for a First Parish Commission on Institutional Change. The Standing Committee accepted our proposal and will soon be considering the next steps in forming such a commission. If First Parish takes this on, it will probably mean some tough, honest conversations as a congregation. But I hope we're at a place where we're willing to enter this process and work together with love, humility, and an openness to seeing things in a new way so that our church can really reflect the values that are built into our 7 principles. Are we ready for this? Will you take part in the work? Speaking on behalf of those who are proposing the commission, we hope so. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those reflections. It is so good to hear about your spiritual growth, your work that you've done, laying the groundwork for us as a congregation. And thank you for explaining this wider movement that we're a part of as Unitarian Universalists. You heard in Jan Powers' reflection a question for us to consider with an open mind and with authenticity, an invitation for us to take up this work, because institutional change can't happen with any one person. It's a collective movement. And so we have a reflection question for you to think about this morning, and we hope that you will ponder it not only by answering in the chat, but to think deeper about these questions that we will continue to pose throughout the years. And that question is, what at First Parish gives you hope we are ready for more anti-oppression transformation? Please share 5 words or less in the chat, and we will lift them up in our service together. are some questions that are easy to answer, that the words just come flooding in. And I actually appreciate that it was a little slower to come in this time, not because you're not committed to anti-oppression work, but because it is a complex system we're all a part of. So we recognize what is happening in the world, one person writes. What gives them hope, says another, is questioning what we say and do. We are more strong and capable than we think we are. One thing that gives someone hope is enthusiastic and wide participation in trainings and groups. Participation in beloved conversations is mentioned here. Past support of refugees is something that First Parish has been a part of. We came through a pandemic. We are strong. The character of the parishioners, increasing participation in related learning opportunities, ... because we are talking about it. There are a lot of wonderful answers here, thoughts to be considered, and I hope that we will keep discussing this as a community and working together for that transformation of which we all must be a part. Thank you.
All the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in every place you can, at all the times you can, to everyone you can, as long as ever you can. Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in every place you can, at all the times you can, to everyone you can, as long as ever you can. Spread all the hope you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, at every place you can, at all the times you can, to everyone you can, as long as ever you can. Get on whenever you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in every place you can, at all the times you can, to everyone you can, as long as ever you can, as long as ever you can.
One of the ways I think about Unitarian Universalism is the intertwining of love and justice. When we do that writ large out in the world, we work within our congregations and we connect with each other heart to heart to care for one another and promote flourishing among all of us. So I invite you in that spirit into this time of prayer. And as we enter our prayerful time, I'll let you know that the actual prayer part is also from Reverend Viola Abbott from the Promise and the Practice, which is a worship service shared with all UU congregations, written and designed by Black Unitarian Universalists. And Reverend Abbott's prayer is just a beautiful complement to her words in the call to worship, which is why I chose them. So with that framing, I also offer the framing that this is the time when we learn about what's going on in each other's lives. And if you have something in your life that you want the congregation to know about, so that we can hold one another in our hearts and prayers, reach out to me at any time. Or during the summer, Jade will be our summer minister, and you can reach out to them at any time. We're here for you and we're here for each other. This week, you'll see more in the chat if you're on Zoom, but this week we hold Jim R., who is recovering after his surgery, which recovery requires a lot of rest. So we send Jim our hope that he can continue to rest well and feel surrounded by our support. Who else is on your heart today? I invite you to call their names aloud in your space or enter them into the chat, and know that either way, we hold them together. We hold you together in spirit. Let's sing together as we see those names beginning to come, and you can keep typing them. Let us call forth and hold in our hearts the stories of all who have come before us, the memories of those who are with us today, and the hope for tomorrow, and for all those who will come after us. Let us hold in our hearts all who are in pain in our community, and all who are celebrating, and those who are joining our community. Let us be thankful for this opportunity for healing, forgiveness, and reconciliation, while knowing that we can never, should never forget what has brought us here today. Let us be glad that voice has not only been given to those whose sorrow and pain were companions in this faith, but that the stories told by those voices have been received, are being received, will be received with a goal of redemption and understanding. Let us call upon that light which shines in each of us to give us the strength to walk together into the future and do the work that is necessary and which does not end here today. Let us have the wisdom to lovingly have the conversations we need to have with each other, that we must have with each other in order to grow this faith in radical love and inclusion. Amen. Let us sit together in a time of quiet meditation.
Good morning, friends. My name is Peter Nobley. I'm lighting the social action candle today. I'm completing my 6th and final year of service on our standing committee today, or this month. And I'm also one of the GA delegates who helped author the call for establishing a commission on institutional change here at First Parish. Regarding racial justice, I have been slow to wake up. As my eyes open, I see ever more clearly the global need to unwind oppression, to learn truths, and to make amends for historic injustices that continue to cause harm today. What I've learned so far in my own racial justice work is that my work is not the responsibility of others. No, this is my work. If we are truly dedicated to the idea of beloved community, where justice will flow like water, then my own experience is teaching me that there are no shortcuts. Either we white people each do the hard work by knocking down our individual sacred cows, or change will not happen. I've made all sorts of excuses to myself, but the truth turns out to be more interesting than the silences and fables under which it is concealed. And I am now aware of the harm caused by my unresisting acceptance of the caste system into which I was born and my place in it. I've learned that we need the courage to stop asking Black people to do our work for us by teaching us how to be anti-racist. Just as we need the courage to stop asking women to teach men how not to be sexist, and we need the courage to stop asking gay people how to teach straight people how not to be homophobic. The oppressed and marginalized have done enough. It is time to listen to their stories. I'm calling especially here to my fellow white men who sit with me not by choice, but by birthright at the top of the race pyramid in America. I'm asking you to join me in registering for the classes, reading the books, and dedicating yourselves to doing this difficult, messy, and critical work. I have been outnumbered by women in every racial justice course or workshop I have attended. My brothers, we are the ones who need to face each other in the halls of power and demand change. Our timidity does us no credit. As with other ongoing struggles, including environmental justice, reproductive or voting rights, or immigration justice, the witness to action road is hard, uncomfortable, and utterly necessary. In closing, as Wendell Berry says in his 1994 poem, Anglo-Saxon Protestant Heterosexual Men, come, dear brothers, let us cheerfully acknowledge that we are the last hope of the world, for we have no excuses, nobody to blame but ourselves. My brothers and sisters in faith, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Let's establish a First Parish in Concord Commission on Institutional Change and get down to work, all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for those words and for that charge. Absolutely. We white men, we've got as much work to do as anybody, so let's get going. This is your opportunity to be generous. Each week we take up a Sunday offering and we split it 50-50 with a good organization. In the month of June, that organization is Household Goods, which provides furniture and household items free of charge to help people who need them to make a home. In a moment, you'll see a number appear on your screen that will allow you to text a donation. It's really simple. Just take out your cell phone, text that number, and text a whole number to it, 2050100, anything you like. The first time you'll need to have your credit card handy to make all of that work. And if you're having any trouble with that, you can just type the word edit to the same number and it'll walk you through it. You can also, of course, donate at our website or mail a check into the church. Thank you for being so generous to First Parish in Concord and to Household Goods. An offering for the good work and witness of these two organizations will now be gratefully received. As we begin to close our service, I'd like to draw your attention to a number of things. This, of course, is a busy time in the life of First Parish. So any of this that you miss will be in your First Parish weekly email. If you're having trouble getting that, please just contact Sarah Burns in the office or just email her at sburns@firstparish.org. The membership book is open today. It's going to be physically open. In fact, I'm going to drive over to the church right after this service, and at 11:30, we'll have a signing. So if you have been thinking about joining the church and signing the book and can make it to First Parish by 11:30, we would welcome your signature and, of course, your membership in the church. Really good news is that COVID numbers are low enough that we can lift the restrictions on outdoor gatherings at the church. This is great. It is big news. What it means is that folks need not mask or distance outside, and we can gather in groups of larger than 25 if we'd like. Of course, folks are always welcome to wear a mask, to distance, to do whatever you need to do to feel like you are safe on church grounds. But to celebrate that, this coming Wednesday, there will be an open sing from 7:00 p.m. to 8:00 p.m. Beth is going to lead a bunch of us singing outside. So if that's something you'd like to join in, just come to the church on Wednesday night at 7:00. This is your last call to get photos in for our flower communion service next week. Just take a picture of yourself with a flower and send that to Sarah Burns at sburns@firstparish.org. And if you'd like to contribute an actual flower to the service, we're going to have a drive-through, walk-through flower communion on Saturday. Just stop by the church anytime between 1:00 p.m. and 4:00 p.m. And Liz and members of the Congregational Life Committee will be there, and you can drop off a flower, you can pick one up. It'll be a wonderful little gathering, so just come by anytime you'd like to do that. The sanctuary will also be open during those hours as well, just to give you a peek inside there. You can go in and sit and pray or meditate or whatever you'd like. We're just starting to put our toe in the water of reopening, and these are a couple of opportunities. Next Sunday, immediately following the service, will be the First Parish annual meeting. We encourage you to stay around that. It'll go till noon or a little bit after, and that's where we make very important decisions, elect members of the standing committee, pass a budget, those kinds of things. So please plan to stay at church longer next week for the annual meeting. Right after this service, if you are interested in the worship sharing circle, it will begin. We'll post a link in the chat. It'll be finished by 11:30 a.m. It's a chance to talk with other folks about the theme of the service. And then lastly, Jane Barnes is here. She's a member of our standing committee. She's been our treasurer, and she would like to invite you to online coffee hour. Jane?
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's so great to be with you on this gorgeous day. So coffee hour is a great way for us to be able to connect and be with each other before we kind of go off on the rest of our day. And I invite you to join us. Thanks.
I also forgot to mention that there will be a session for new members right after the church too, and the link to that will be in the chat as well as a link to the report that the folks were talking about earlier. So look in the chat for all your needs. Beth's going to get us into the closing song.
Widening the circle of concern immediately brought to mind for me the song Draw the Circle Wide, which we have sung as a congregation countless times with great enthusiasm. Our choirs love it. And we love Mark Miller, the composer of Draw the Circle Wide. And so this morning, I'd like for us to sing along with Mark Miller and with some singers that we've never met before. This is a recording that was done at a workshop Mark did in Ohio, and I invite you to sing along and draw the circle wide.
circle, draw the circle wide. We can all sing that together. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we'll stand side by side. We'll draw the circle, draw the circle round. As we sing that again, we didn't plan this, but why don't we draw the circle and make a big circle around this sanctuary? We help us, we sing, draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. And in your sadness and in your grief, from all the pain, it seems there's no release. We will hold you until the storm subsides. We'll draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Yes, draw the circle wide, draw it wider. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side. Oh, draw wide, draw the circle, draw the circle wide. One more time, draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle wide. Sing, choir. And we all sing together. Draw the circle, draw the circle
We can do this work, you and I. We will do it imperfectly. We will mess up. We will have to ask forgiveness. We will be forgiven. But we must do this work. We must move step by step in some forward direction, knowing that we're not doing it alone and that it is work that will in fact save the world and each of us. Please join in the first parish benediction. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings.
wide.